Andrew O'Donnell of Supercharged Stocks. Really pleased to have
Andrew.
President and CEO of Desert Mountain Energy. Lots going on. This is the time we've been waiting for.
So this is a special day for us. We just announced last night we had started drilling our first well in the Helium exploration program in Arizona's Holbrook Basin. Everybody's excited. They're just now still at the top of the hole, putting casing in and so on, but looking forward to getting into the 5 prospective zones that we've identified, which potentially could host reservoirs of helium-bearing gas. So a lot to look forward to, a lot of potential excitement, and we're keeping our fingers crossed for success.
Yeah, and the stock has got a lot of attention over the last couple months before leading up to this inaugural drill.
We did extremely well during this COVID clouded market, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Our stock is trading around 38 cents right now. Up from, it's essentially doubled in the last couple months. Nothing compared to what kind of valuation we could get if we're successful in our program in Arizona. Yeah. Just by way of reminder, Arizona's Holbrook Basin has had the highest grade helium produced in all of North America, really ranking up there with the highest grade helium produced anywhere in the world. And it's done so in very large quantities. We're looking for a high grade helium in large quantities that is not associated with oil and gas. So that's particularly important now because the oil and gas industry has been subject to a lot of volatility recently. Our program's headed up by Robert Rolfing, who has 25 plus years experience drilling all over the U.S. Southwest as well as overseas. He's had a great record of success in his career. Over 250 wells drilled. Over 90% of those were commercially successful.
Yeah, and like you said, there is urgency because it's started. You're underway. It's we're here already. So there's excitement leading up to this. Now, if someone wants to try to get involved, it's sooner than later, because if you guys hit in one of these 5 attractive targets, you're going to see a significant move.
We looked at the results of the wells drilled in Arizona, in our basin, because that's relevant in terms of what might be reasonable expectations. And what we found is that the better wells were generating what amounts to about 10,000 US at today's prices for helium, amounts to about $10,000 or $12,000 US per day in gross revenues. And the average life of those wells was 15 to 20 years. So if you pull out your calculator and do a cash flow valuation, it's a very substantial number. Yes. And right now, our stock is trading for a valuation of 14 or 15 million Canadian dollars, which is maybe 1/5 or 1/8 of the value, a tremendous amount of upside. And ultimately, we now control 65,000 acres in the Holbrook Basin. We've got some additional ground pending now with applications. We think this is a big, big opportunity. If a good well is worth between 50 and 125 million, you can do the math. So the helium is rising up until it hits that cap. So it's relatively shallow, which is great because it means we don't have to drill deep. The wells are simple vertical wells, and the deepest we would foresee in the basin having to drill would be 3,000 to 4,000 feet. That helps to keep the costs under control. We don't need any fancy horizontal wells. No. We don't need to do fracking. No. And we're in a position to do these wells relatively quickly. The mathematics are good,
Yeah.
the economics are good,
Yes.
and we just have to have a little bit of luck in the ground,
Yeah.
you know. And as I like to caution all of our shareholders and friends of the company, anytime you put a drill in the ground in the resource program, there is risk.
Yes.
We think we have mitigated that risk with an outstanding team. We've got an excellent drilling company in Drake, very experienced family-owned company since 1963, drilling all over the Southwest. We've done everything we can to push the odds in our favor.
Yes, for sure. It's funny because I was watching a World Economic Forum conference, I think it was just over a week ago,
Yeah.
and they were talking about this new, what they're calling a global reset. So they're including a lot of things in this reset, but it was them saying they're deploying about $1 trillion towards this new economy. And this new economy is going to be, of course, the electrification of the future, very battery energy, metal dependent, obviously computer-driven, 5G smart cities, all this type of idea. And all of this requires coolants as we get smarter, faster, tinier chips that sometimes melt because of the heat.
10 or 15 years ago, helium was a sleepy commodity. The high-tech world has embraced helium in the last 5 to 7 years. And specifically, it's being used as a coolant. Computer companies, internet companies like Facebook, Netflix, they have these big data centers where they store trillions of bits of information. These data centers are loaded with the very fast, big computers. They run extremely hot. So these data centers typically are now using helium to keep the cores of these computers cool, which reduces the energy costs associated with operating them. You've got chip manufacturers, Intel, those kinds of companies buying helium. You've got all the internet companies. And in addition, you've got things like fiber optic cable that use helium.
Yeah.
You've got barcode readers in supermarkets.
Yeah.
I don't know where it's all going to end, because helium production, in spite of this huge upsurge in demand, is actually declining. In 2007, the world helium production was over 6 billion cubic feet. Today, it's under 5 billion cubic feet.
Yeah.
Yet demand is growing anywhere from 5 to 7% a year, depending on who you ask. So helium prices on a wholesale level for crude helium essentially have gone from $100 to almost $300 an MCF. They've essentially tripled in the last 4 or 5 years. Well, some smaller transactions in helium have actually been taking place as high as $850 to $1,000 an MCF. And I think with all of these new applications just around the corner, with the advent of quantum computers that are going to require massive amounts of helium, medical uses and so on, when you put all of that together, it presents a picture for helium prices potentially above $2,000 an MCF in the not too far future. All the pieces are in place, with declining supply against continually growing demand from all kinds of new applications. So we've been contacted by numerous end users.
Yes.
And we're saying, well, we're not a helium producing company at this time. We're just but we hope to be there soon.
Yes.
And people ask us, what's our strategy as far as marketing the helium? Well, in Arizona, we're close to the U.S. high-tech buyers, biomedical buyers on the West Coast, specifically California, Silicon Valley, and then up, to Seattle and Oregon, Facebook, and so on. We're sitting on a rare opportunity with a very scarce commodity that's getting scarcer in the face of growing demand. We're in the right location, and all we need to do is make a discovery, and we're going to be off to the races.
Yeah.
Our marketing plan is to ally ourselves with one or two of the big distribution companies to create offtake agreements for a portion of our helium supply, and we will keep the other portion for direct sales to the U.S. government, as well as some private sales. But we do expect to find a lot of helium, and
well, there is urgency because the drill's going, so we're off to the races. We're at that big first step.
there you
Things are
go.
looking good.
I will point out, our stock had gotten all the way up to 45 cents 2 weeks ago, and we announced a small quick financing,
Yep.
which is essentially closed already in 12 days. We raised 650,000 Canadian dollars to effectively top off our drill program for this summer. The effect of that was to depress the stock temporarily.
Yep.
So I do think that there's an opportunity. We don't plan to put out a lot of news until we have real news. We think it's important to get a relatively complete data set before we say anything publicly. Well, about 30 days or so, 30, 40 days from now.
Excellent. Well, we'll be eyes peeled.
Thanks. Talking again with some good news soon.
Yes, excellent for sure. Take care. Thank you.